portion too is to help identify the victims in these videos, these images, correct?
Correct, yes.
How does that work?
We started a project back in 2011. That project was Project Vic. And that was to help identify victims sooner and ensure all of the data that we actually seize in an investigation gets reviewed by an investigator.
So what do you guys do exactly? Walk me through if you guys just have a bust, if you guys just bust an offender, right? What do you do? Walk me through from the beginning with all those images.
So on a search warrant, we'll collect evidence. We try to preview as much as we can on scene. If we're not able to preview something or it has contraband on it, we bring it back to the office and use Project Vic to actually carve in unallocated space for any deleted images. And the software helps us to primarily focus on those images that we haven't seen before. And that's going to be the newly manufactured child pornography. It allows us to dissect the images. And depending on the graphics in the image, Project Vic has been used to pull fingerprints out of an image. If the graphics are that good, we can zoom in and dissect that image well enough that we could actually get fingerprints.
And that's how you're finding your victims?
Yes.
So it's kind of an oxymoron here. You're using technology in the fight against technology.
Absolutely. And it's a worldwide collaborative effort. So as officers around the world categorize these files and write descriptions of what the contents are, we don't have to necessarily pay as much attention to that when that comes into our investigation. We can put our focus on the stuff that hasn't been seen before and try to identify more children out there being abused.
How is this a game changer?
It's huge. Technology to collaborate around the world from the comforts of your own office, essentially, is what it boils down to. All the information that's happening around the world for law enforcement is brought to one central database, which we have access to, and you don't have to review as much material, so your efforts are on identifying new victims.
What did you guys do before Project Vic?
Every image was a new image. Every case was brand new. That information didn't stay with those files, and now it does. So it's huge. So if there's series out there, children that have been victimized or categorized in a series, so there's multiple photos of that same child. So that same child happened Monday on that case. We get another case on Wednesday. That information, that same victim could be in that case as well, and we would start over looking at those images and videos like it was a new image, essentially.
So does this Project Vic, this technology, does it also help you find offenders?
It can, yes. There's a lot of technology in the software, obviously, to get detailed enough in an image where you could actually pull a fingerprint. So that can help us identify victims depending on where they're victimizing their victims. You could pull out anything that's in that image and basically draw a square around that and try to focus similar images in that same case that may contain that same item in those images as well. Potentially you could read the label on a phone book, and that might give you a direction to focus your efforts to try to identify that victim, and then let that jurisdiction know potentially this child was victimized in your jurisdiction.
So it's not just, you guys aren't just finding victims in Utah, you guys are finding victims all over the world and then collaborating with each other.
Absolutely. Primarily our focus is Utah, and if a case looks like it crosses state lines, we can package that case up and send that to the next jurisdiction, and they can pick up where we left off.
I'm going to read you these numbers. Since September 2002, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Child Identification Program has processed more than 240 million child exploitation images and video files have been seized by law enforcement. 37 million were possessed in 2017 alone. What do those numbers say?
We're scratching the surface with those numbers. Project Vic started in 2011, and we're up to categorized a little over 5 million files. And I think that's scratching the surface, essentially.
What do you mean by that?
There's so much content out there, and that content is continually changing because it's being reproduced. A collage, say different child pornography images put into one, or new child pornography is being created.
What do you do after you find a clue or find some sort of evidence that helps you, that leads to one of the victims?
To reach out to the victim's advocate, first identify the child, confirm the age of the child, the identity of the child, and then try to get the child some resources to help them further their recovery.
What if you never find a victim? Is there like a case that kind of eats away at you that you think, this is terrible, I've got to find this victim?
That's the one victim that comes to mind was a young boy, and it took us 2 years to identify that boy. And it's a lot of work, and it's a tough pill to swallow. We're not going to save all the victims, but we're going to work the very best we can when we are at work, and try to identify as many as we possibly can.
So if you're a victim, yeah, you guys may have caught the offender, but their images can still be out there somewhere.
Oh, they'll probably be out there forever. There's no resources for law enforcement, and we don't have the time to investigate and get rid of those images once they're on the World Wide Web.
How many identified victims in Utah are there using this Project Vic, or just from your time that you've been here with the task force?
A conservative number, probably 24 over that time frame.
Over which one, since you started?
Since 2011.
Since 2011. So that's 24 victims here in Utah. Without Project Vic, do you think the number would be 24?
I don't. Without that technology and that worldwide collaboration, I don't think we would be at that number.
How many years have you been doing this?
Over, excuse me, over a decade.
What keeps you going? Because these images that you guys say, nobody wants to see them.
It's saving kids is very, very rewarding, and there's a lot of satisfaction when you can stop that cycle for that individual, that child, and hopefully the offenders get what's just, and hopefully the victims are able to move forward with their life. So this is Project Vic, and we could draw a square around that if there was an object.
So tell me what you're looking at here and how you would use what's in this image to help you identify the scene or where this took place.
So this looks like a bookshelf, a storage shelf, and then if there was abuse in this image, say that was unique, then we could search for visually similar content as that same image, whatever you draw in that square, and then it's going to post up above. Obviously, it's going to pull stuff that's not relevant, and that's easily identifiable, and you move on to the next few images. A lot of it's going to depend on the quality of the image originally. If we're able to zoom in on a very small object, then we can find that same object in any other images or videos within that same case.
How many hours a day would you spend doing this?
You could spend days. Some, obviously a terabyte of storage is pretty cheap, and if they're filling up terabytes of storage, we're looking at weeks of work to try to identify the victims and go through that volume of content. It's all about the victims. That's what we're doing it for, and I think that's what all the women and men involved with internet crimes against children are very passionate about, is rescuing and helping those victims.